Well, last time I visited with this young man, Darin Myers of TAB CSRA.com, we talked about an annual review for 2021 and what our plans were for 2022. How has your 2022 gone so far?
Well, pretty good. It's only, first 2 weeks of the year.
That's right.
But I've liked the weather for the most part. Go Dogs.
Yeah.
We finally got over that hump.
We kicked off the year in a good fashion, and today we're going to drill down a little bit on what the plans are and KPIs. What are they? So first of all, what does KPI stand for?
Well, KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. Okay. So basic question first. Yeah, when I was thinking what we should talk about, I mean, last month we talked about annual planning, strategic planning, and maybe some of the action plans would go with that. I thought we would go on the other end of that and talk a little bit about KPIs, which I think are a key part of an action plan and being able to track and measure how you're performing against thresholds or targets that you've established.
So for the layperson like me, is that a lot of numbers on a spreadsheet and kind of where you should be at a certain point?
Well, I suppose, yeah. I do think that it's important to keep it somewhat simple.
Mm-hmm.
The point I think it's very important that you have some. Don't think you need to have a lot. My previous job out at the nuclear plant was we had a catalog full, and I'm not indicating that we need that. In fact, I read an article the other day. The thumb rule would be that if you can flash review all of your indicators, you got to be able to do all of them in less than 5 minutes. So
wow.
That, if you're not spending a lot of time, I don't know what that means, how many, but that certainly would indicate you don't want tens upon tens, but rather probably less than 10 would be if you want to really spend some time looking at each one and be able to get through your entire catalog of indicators in less than 10 minutes. Less than 5 to 10 minutes.
Would KPIs be different for a retail store versus a service company that's doing heating and air?
Well, I would even take it, yes, and I would even take it further than that. I think they're all specific to a particular company, because your plans, your strengths, your weaknesses, your visions, your strategic plans, and the specific action plans that have been generated from all that are custom and specific to your company. So even if you happen to be an HVAC company, but you happen to be different than the other HVACs, I'm not convinced that you got to have the same KPIs.
Sure.
I think there's going to be some common KPIs that are probably typical across many companies and businesses. But at the end of the day, I think each and every one of them's customized to the needs and wants of a given business.
Okay. And we're continuing to speak with Darin Myers, and Darin is the facilitator of TAB CSRA, which is the alternative board. It's a peer-to-peer advisory board. I happen to be part of it, and we do discuss, real specifics. real money and money going out and money coming in. And you mentioned that there are some similarities within companies. How does someone get started identifying what their KPIs should be?
Well, if you have a big enough team, I think it would be important to maybe even consult the team within your organization to get their input. I think that's very important. Your action plans and the things that you've identified what you're going to do in your annual plan would certainly help drive that as well. In other words, if you got a weakness or something that you really want to try to improve on, there would maybe be some focus on that particular area. The following year, maybe that weakness has been turned into a strength or has went away. Maybe you don't have that KPI. I don't think KPIs are there forever. In fact, if it's not worthwhile and it's tied to a plan that was from years ago, get rid of it. I think it's very important that they're valuable. Number one, I think you keep them simple and reasonably at the number we talked about earlier. And I think at the end of the day, they got to be accurate. So you got to make sure that you're picking indicators that you can actually use real data, and then to be able to use those to give you real information of where your business is headed and what it's currently doing.
All right. From a financial standpoint, what might be a few? Would it be a goal of a certain amount of revenue?
I mean, obviously those are, first of all, indicators can be leading which is sort of more forward-looking, and I think a lot of people would say those are the ones you really should be going after. Lagging indicators are things that are in the past, and financial indicators are almost always lagging. In other words, the things that happened last month, you can't change those things. So those are lagging. They're important, and I'm not saying they're not. So things like financials would be your liquidity, your current ratios, your quick asset ratios, and things that you can identify quickly. Can I cover all my current liabilities? In other words, sort of measuring your cash flow capabilities.
Okay.
Things like net revenue, gross revenue, profit margins, cash flows, those would typically be all your financial indicators that, frankly, across all businesses that you probably would have indicators on.
Right. Balance sheet.
Right.
And so forth and so on.
Right.
Okay. Very interesting with the KPIs.
You know, I liked a quote that I read from, I think it was Jack Welch with GE. Now, GE has not done so well as of late, but when he was in his prime, he was viewed as one of the kingpins of business here in the United States. And I liked his quote that he said, you know, if I had to pick 3 indicators that I want to use, one would be customer satisfaction.
Okay.
Because if you're not measuring your customer satisfaction, you may not be in business very long. Made sense. Number 2, employee satisfaction and employee feedback. In other words, that's the team that's going to meet the needs of the customers and the feedback. And thirdly, cash flow. I mean, I think a lot of people view profit margins are big, but I would argue probably cash flow is king when it comes to importance of indicators, because at the end of the day, you got to be able to cover
payroll's coming on Friday,
right.
kids.
That's right. So,
well, it's interesting what you said, because I'm guessing customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction will probably lead to positive cash flow.
Well, I think that was probably the basis of his quote, is that, you know, boil it down to what's important. Well, I got to understand how I'm interacting with my customers, and am I impacting my customers, and are they pleased with me? Secondly, the team that you're using to get there, your employee indicator, whether it's employee feedback, employee retention, so on and so forth. And then certainly cash flow is sort of the lifeblood of the organization from a financial standpoint.
Can an individual business owner set up KPIs themselves, or do you believe or do you believe that you need to partner with a money person to do that? I don't think money is, you know, the finances, probably your accountant, your balance sheet's going to sort of have those in front of you a little bit. And anyway, and I told you that those are often lagging, and not often, they are lagging indicators. I think a key business owner really wants to try to go after as much as they can the leading indicators that can sort of project how things are going in the future, and therefore they can check and adjust before it becomes a real problem. So, you know, the typical sales funnel, if you have certain leads, true,
okay, and the fact that you can say, hey, how many contacts do I have in the sales funnel?
Right.
May ultimately be used mid-month to say, hey, we're going to have a bad month here.
I got to get more leads.
Right. You know, so there are indicators that you can put together that are more future looking, again, called leading indicators that I think are very important.
That's most interesting. So we have a Jack Welch thought, and then how does the airline industry fit into KPIs, do you think? Didn't you mention to me there's instruments?
You know, last month I talked about that there's a lot of business owners that don't have plans, and they'll have all the reasons why, you know, I'm too busy, or I'm, you know, had a good year, or whatever the case may be. I translate that a little bit to how many people have really good KPIs. And the analogy I use is, would you get in a plane with a pilot that doesn't have any instrumentation in the cockpit?
He might be a really bright guy.
Hope it's a bright, sunny day, right?
Yeah, sure.
So my point there is I personally wouldn't jump in a plane and go fly with altitude and compass and all the things that a pilot needs. I don't know why we would run our business any different.
Right.
And I think that many businesses out there don't use KPIs to their advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think it's keep it simple. Recognize there as a tool to help you make good decisions for future business. And I think you're really leaving some on the table if you don't use these KPIs to your advantage.
All right.
They're your KPIs as
Right.
a business owner.
And you
so
should
guess
know.
what? You can, hey, that's not working for me. Let's get that one away and let's
Yeah.
bring in another one.
Sure. Before we scoot for this segment, any other lagging or leading thoughts that you may have about KPIs?
Well, I'll just leave you with that I think leading KPIs would be one that you really should try to strive for. I think it takes some work to pick out the right KPIs. I think it's okay if you strike out on a few, admit it, throw them away, and get to the next one. I think you got to recognize the business will change, and so should the KPIs. Coming to your targets and your thresholds that you apply, I think try to be reasonable. I think it's a bad idea to have lofty goals, but try to keep them reasonable. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times you can compare from previous months if you have that data. And I think sometimes the rolling trend is very powerful too, visually, that you're not just looking at the numbers, but visually you're looking and you can see, where a particular indicator is headed.
Okay. He's Darin Myers. Again, he can help with KPIs with local companies through his coaching and also through the alternative board on the website TAB CSRA.com. And we just wanted to give a shout out to our friends David and Chris here with Augusta Podcasts and AugustaPodcasts.com. This is now, I think, your 4th or 5th month here. And it's really it's a great place to be and to just enjoy good conversation.
No, I mentioned this before. They've done a great job. I'm certainly not winning an Oscar anytime soon, but I will say that they have made me very comfortable from the word go, and I feel very good that they've done me well, and I'm certain that they would do anybody well if they came in here and tried to do this.
Well, in a moment, we're going to shift to our next topic, but we did want to mention that, they have more than 20 clients or so that are currently doing podcasts, and you may want to go on ahead and go to AugustaPodcasts.com to take a look at some of the clients and how this may work for you.